It's 1916 and you're a lady about town, but how do you get about town? This is how. So this is the Detroit Electric Brougham. It was made by the Anderson Electric Car Company in 1916. They're an American car company based in Detroit, Michigan, which was known as the Motor City or the automobile capital of the world at the time because of all of the car brands that were based there. As the name suggests, it is an electric car. Detroit Electric was a particularly popular brand of electric car at the time, and they sold about 13,000 units between 1907 and 1939. The reason it's called the Detroit Brougham is that it's named after a 19th century horse-drawn carriage called the Broom Carriage. This was a really influential design in horse-drawn carriages at the time.
The automobile, which at first had been only for the wealthy, was being priced within the reach of most American families. There still were mechanical headaches, but the auto was here to stay.
So at the turn of the 20th century, there were three main types of propulsion available for cars.
Each car was learning from its predecessor. A new era was speeding ahead with the swiftness of the automobile.
There were internal combustion engines, which we're very, very familiar with today. There were electric cars, and there were also steam-powered cars. Each one was popular for different reasons. They each had their own pros and cons. Internal combustion engines, they were very quick to refuel. You could refill them almost instantly, and it was very easy to get hold of the fuel as well. But they were quite difficult to use in that they had to be hand cranked to start. That could be messy, hard work, and it also could be dangerous. If the car would backfire while you're cranking it, it could break your arm. Steam-powered cars were a little bit smaller and quieter than internal combustion engines, but they would take quite a while to get going because the engine would have to warm up and kind of reach operating pressure. So it could take up to half an hour before you could set off. The advantage of electric cars was that they would start up instantly. You didn't have to get out and crank it. You didn't have to light a fire and get the engine warmed up. They were marketed to doctors who needed to kind of quickly get in their car and head to a patient, and also marketed to ladies, who didn't want to get out and crank the engine and possibly get a bit messy in the process. But the drawbacks of the electric cars was that the batteries were quite heavy. They had a limited range, and then of course you had to recharge them. So charging them up could take anywhere between 8 and 16 hours. So you really had to only take one journey kind of within the range of the batteries. Charging stations were available in big cities, like New York had charging stations sort of around every 10 blocks, where you could charge your car up for quite a reasonable fee. But if you were kind of out long distance, going cross country, it would be quite difficult to find somewhere that you could plug in and recharge and leave it overnight. So this particular model had a top speed of around 20 miles an hour and a range of 80 miles, and the power was about 10 horsepower. So given the limited range and limited speed, it was ideal for travelling around within towns and cities. And for that reason, it was really marketed as a sort of luxury car. And when we have a look at the inside as well, you'll be able to see that kind of luxury status really reflected in the design. At the time, this would have cost between $2,000 and $3,000 which is about the equivalent of $100,000 today. So very much luxury market. Henry Ford's wife, Clara Ford, actually owned quite a few Detroit Electrics, including a Brougham like this one. This object is part of our working collection, so we can actually get in it and also drive it. So let's start by taking a closer look. So one of the first noticeable aspects of the design of the car are the similarities to the Brougham horse-drawn carriage. So that can be seen in the shape of the car itself and also in decorative features like the lamps here. There are also more conventional headlamps here, as it is a functional car, and a kind of bumper at the front to protect the bodywork. So it's electric, but how is it powered? Much like modern electric cars, it runs on batteries. So under the bonnet here, we've got half of the batteries it takes to power the car. These aren't the originals, but they are the same type, so they're lead-acid batteries so that they'll be compatible with the transmission. You might notice that there aren't any windscreen wipers like we'd expect to see today, but this hinged window at the top here could give some protection from rain and snow. So moving around the side of the vehicle, you can see some nice details that really kind of reflect the attention to detail and the luxury nature of the car. So you have the Anderson Electric Detroit mark here on the wheel, and again Detroit Electric branding even on the footplate here where passengers would climb in. You can also notice that it has got a tax disc. So before this car came to the Science Museum in 2018, it was on the Isle of Man in the Manx Motor Museum, and it was actually driven on the road, so it was completely road legal. As it has been driven on the roads recently, it is fitted with safety features like rear lights. There is a spare tyre on the back here, and that's an Isle of Man licence plate. Now in the back here you might expect this to be a boot for luggage, but it actually contains half of the batteries that power the car. Where you can really see that this was a luxury vehicle is from the interior. Upholstered right from the get-go. There's a door pocket here and functional winding windows. There's also the footplate and the handle that made it as easy as possible for people to get in and out. At the time, car designs hadn't really been standardised yet, so manufacturers had a lot of freedom with how they configured the interior. So although I am sitting in the back, I'm actually sitting in the driver's seat. So the driver would sit on this very comfortable upholstered bench and have to look kind of past the passengers out the front windscreen here. Instead of being driven with a steering wheel, it's operated with tillers. So these would unlock and would come across my lap. The longer one here is for steering, much like a barge, and the shorter one here is for the speed. So it would be fixed speeds forwards and backwards to operate the car. There's also a feature we're familiar with today, which is a rear view mirror across the top of the windscreen, so the driver can see out of the back. But you can really see the luxury details in the interior here. Everything is upholstered, lovely piping around all of the edges, and blinds across all of the back windows for privacy. And there are these velvet pull ropes for people to kind of hang on to while the car is moving. And cut glass lights at the back. There are the locking pedals here for the driver, and then at the front there are some instruments measuring the amps and the volts of the battery, so you can keep an eye on how the motor's running. That's enough talk about it. Let's see this thing in action. If you enjoyed this video, please do like and subscribe. And if you want to see this car for real, we do tours of the National Collection Centre, so check out the description below for details.